Hi, I'm Jay Ruane. We're delighted that you've been selected to be a speaker, and this video is a quick overview of how to best present to a group so that your message comes across clearly, your takeaways resonate with the attendees, and we remove some of the natural anxiety that comes with presenting publicly. Thanks for listening today. My own journey to presenting started back in 2000. I was a young lawyer who had taken an interest in the niche of DUI defense, and I started attending national seminars. When I put the things I had learned into action and started getting results, I was asked to present to my state annual criminal litigation seminar, and I knew I wanted to do the best job possible. I started researching the best ways to present complex topics and began studying the speakers at every seminar I attended. What made them great? There were some things that really worked over and over. And what made them stink? Well, there were some things a lot of presenters do that just don't work, and I saw them too many times to count. And as I did more presentations and got more feedback, I saw what was working and started making changes in real time from the stage to get the best impact on my audience. And I wanted to share them with you so that you can do a great job when you speak. I know you are nervous. Everybody who gets on stage is. But you really know your stuff, and the organizers believe in you and your ability to teach others. So work with me so we can get the best out of you. And trust me, even small, incremental changes can make a massive change in your style and how people respond to you. And when you start getting rave reviews from audiences and start getting asked to speak more and more, you will know that you are crushing it and the work was worth it. Because speaking engagements allow you the best opportunity to showcase your knowledge and that you are the perfect person to help them solve their problems, no matter what they are. Now, there are plenty of YouTube videos to help you learn the patterns of great speeches or the framework for an exhilarating TED Talk, and this won't be one of them. But you should search for them and watch them as well. The truth is, we can always get better at the spoken word, and you should think of yourself as a work in progress, getting better and better at presenting. So today in this video, we will cover 4 topics. These core 4 topics will allow you to understand the fundamentals of speaking in public and allow you to identify the items you will need to prepare in advance. Preparation is key. Deadlines are set for materials to come into us so that we can get the proper approvals for credit, as well as make sure the slides or materials are ready for the audience. Number 1 takeaway from this video is that you cannot wing it when it comes to preparing for a presentation like this. You are better than that. Your audience deserves more. And when you prepare in advance, you will inevitably be more comfortable presenting, and you will find little things that you can tweak or add or take away from your presentation in the days and weeks you have in advance that will make your presentation the best possible. The 4 topics we will cover today are content. Of course, this is what people are here to see and to hear. Your content needs to be compelling and interesting. Great speakers like yourself can make even dry content fun for the audience. I mean, they're actually here to hear you speak on this topic, so if you give them good content, you win. Slides and artwork. There are some basic design principles I will share with you to get the best out of your slide layouts. Visual imagery is very important nowadays, and you cannot get by with weak visuals anymore. The reality is that great design is easy on the eyes and just works, while bad color choice and bad design hurts the eyes and makes your audience uncomfortable. We will go over the 3 main presentation software options on the market and talk about their positives and their negatives. Technology for the public speaker has come tremendously far since when I started speaking. And for even a novice public speaker, you can use some technology to make the job easier and the message smoother. Finally, we will cover a little bit about stage presence and what you can do to help yourself if you are a mover, if you're someone who likes to stand in one spot, or a combo of both. Okay, let's start with content. That's what's gonna get you what you want. It's gonna get you a rep for, I am all gas, no brake, we're going the distance. So content is like 90% of why people are coming to see you speak. So your first attention should be on what content you will be presenting. It's not enough just to have a topic and just flow extemporaneously from the stage. Like a movie, a TV show, or really any sort of entertainment, a good speech has a beginning, a middle, and an end. Now, this isn't a new theory, as Aristotle has written about how to give persuasive speeches in rhetoric from 2,600 years ago. Aristotle himself talks about the three pathways to persuasion: the ethos, the logos, and the pathos. The ego positions the speaker as the model image that this audience strives to be. So this is a great starting point for you as a speaker. The audience is already there to see you and hear you, so they already have acknowledged that you have information and skills they wish to have for themselves. For the logos, think of the root word for logic. Logos as a pathway shows a clearly logical way to get to the conclusion you desire of the audience. It could be a new concept or method you use and wish to introduce, or a new way of handling a common problem or issue. No matter what, a certain portion of your audience would naturally respond favorably to this method, as it takes most emotion out of the decision. Finally, there's pathos, where the speaker uses the emotions of the audience to convey the feelings and emotions in the audience that drives the topic close to home. It just hits different. Now, taking all that into consideration, it's pretty apparent that if you want the best audience connection and the best reactions, you can't just throw something together at the last minute. By thinking of your topic and how to communicate it to the audience, you give yourself the best chance of really connecting with the people there. It all starts with your outline. Think about any good written thing you have done. Outlines can make a difference in how you present because you can leave the outline and come back to it, which allows you to think it through, more ideas, and how to deliver the message well. One of the ways I prepare for a presentation is to, at the beginning of preparation, develop a slide of the three main takeaways I want someone to have when they listen to my speech. By focusing on those takeaways, I can make sure that my main takeaways are heard and understood in the context of my presentation. When I see the three takeaways, I can also figure out how I can weave a story that communicates the three takeaways cohesively so that there is a message that makes contextual sense for the audience to understand the takeaways. The reason we use three takeaways, and you can always use one or two, but three works, is because people can wrap their heads around threes. It's hardwired into our brains. And if you use psychological tendencies that pre-exist in every human brain, you reduce the chances they miss the point. Now, I'm not expecting you to stand on stage and juggle, unless you want to do that, but I do want to talk to you about the combination of education and entertainment so you can drive your message home and have it resonate with your audience. Nobody likes to be bored. Nobody likes to be read to. More on that later. And nobody wants a dull presentation. See what I did there? I used the rule of threes. Part of your job as a good presenter is to entertain your audience. And when you have combined education with some entertainment, you will forever be known as a great presenter. Your entertainment doesn't have to be conventional entertainment. I'm not expecting you to start with a joke, unless of course, that's your authentic self. Trust me on this. Audiences can see fake within a microsecond. And if you're being fake, you will lose them no matter how important your message is. Your entertainment doesn't have to be conventional entertainment. I'm not expecting you to start with a hacky joke, unless of course it is your authentic self. Trust me on this. Audiences can see fake within a microsecond. And if you're being fake, you will lose them no matter how important your message is. But instead of trying to entertain with hacky jokes, you can entertain them by doing something that humans have done for thousands of years over a fire, and that is to tell a story. If you are speaking on a topic, undoubtedly it has relevance to your life in some capacity. Use storytelling to engage the audience. Maybe you start your story with a literal story about how you came to understand or use the concept you will be speaking about. The context of a story brings so much more opportunity for an audience member to identify with you because they can find similar situations in their own lives that mimic your experience. and therefore you maintain a connection. But don't just rely on stories if you're looking to connect. Stages are a great place to exhibit anger, humor, empathy, or whatever emotion helps convey your story. Now, I'm not saying that you have to find emotion in the subject matter, because let's face it, it may not exist. You may be discussing the rule against perpetuities, or common misconceptions about 404B evidence, or maybe even advanced digital marketing strategies. But you, having lived through whatever experience or experiences that the seminar chair people believe make you the best person to speak on this topic, so you can pull those experiences to develop the emotion necessary to convey your takeaways. Maybe you focus on your fear when dealing with an issue, or you're angry at a particular witness or event. Conveying emotion, when done properly, can rally the audience to your side and bring them along on the journey. Remember, you want them to remember your presentation long after they leave the seminar. And like Maya Angelou says, people will forget what you said, people will forget what you did, but people will never forget how you make them feel. For more on this topic, I would highly recommend watching Nancy Duarte's TED Talk on the secret structure of great talks. It will be time well spent. So one of the things you have to consider when you speak is your pacing and the use of silence. Silence is dramatic, but it also allows something important: your audience to take in your idea and see how it applies to them. So build in pauses and work on your pacing. Rushing to get everything in either means that your topic is too broad or you don't know it well enough. Look, I'm from the New York area and we talk quickly. I myself have learned that I need to put a note on my slides to slow down. And it's a way to remind you that you need to give the audience time to take in what you are saying. Along those lines, you should also take some time to understand the audience and their ability to grasp the concepts that you will speak of. This can be more challenging when you have an audience like ours, with a wide variety of life and professional experiences and training. The good news is that it is not hard to start with basic concepts and bring even the youngest, least experienced attendee up to speed. Just make sure that you include, at the beginning, some basic definitions or context so the newbies can follow along even if the topic starts to go above their heads. Now, one of the easiest ways for someone like you to communicate concepts is to tie them to the real world in which you live. And for many of us, those come to us via war stories. Here's the thing with war stories. They are great because they make you the hero. A finely told war story places you at the center, and while that is good for your ego, it's not good for the audience. You need to make the story about them. Of course, if a short war story can throw in some humor, even if it's at your own expense, don't hesitate to throw it in, but make it short and sweet. Nobody cares about your war stories but your mother. Some of the worst presentations I have seen were clearly unscripted verbal diarrhea of war stories by someone who put zero preparation time into their preparation because they thought they were good enough to just wing it and relied on a string of war stories to fill time. They may have been good at whatever topic they were speaking on, but now nobody knows that. They stunk because they didn't treat it like they should. I know you are better than that, and you do too. The next topic we will cover will be one of the biggest ways to improve your presentations and get rave reviews, although it may seem subtle to most and not even register purposefully with your audience, and that is your slide deck and your artwork. There are three major platforms for the creation of slide decks in the market today. While many small players exist, I'm sticking with the top three tools because they are the most frequently used and abused, and you probably already have access to at least two of them on your current computer. And if you're presenting at a conference that wants your slides in advance so that they can distribute them or get them approved for education credits, they will likely ask for them in one of these three formats. First up is my tool of choice, which is Apple's Keynote. Keynote has many tools that make creating sharp-looking presentations easy. The program itself focuses on overall design and has many tools to manipulate images and text so that it looks professionally created. Hands down, the most commonly used presentation software, PowerPoint was the granddaddy of them all and is still used by many presenters. The interface is more complicated than Keynote's, but like Keynote, it gives you templates that are easy to use with bullet points, columns, and text editing. The new upstart in the market is Google Slides, and if you have kids in school, they probably use this to present to their teachers and classmates. Google Slides has the benefit of being part of the Google Suite toolset, which is a cloud-based product. So, if you have internet access in your presentation room, you can access your slides easily. Making sure you have a strong enough internet connection could be an issue. There is a way to download your slides to present them without being connected, but the main draw for Google Slides is that it is free for any Google user and your slides are stored in the cloud, so you aren't at risk of leaving them on a thumb drive in your office in Baltimore when you are in Chicago. Now I'm going to get a little artsy with you for a few moments because I think this is one area where you can get a lot of guidance that will make a huge difference in how the presentation is received by the audience. Slide design is an opportunity to show your style and personality, and while you may have a great personality, not everyone has the best sense of style. Let's face it, mixing and matching colors does not come naturally to people. Luckily, I have solutions for you that are free. One of the first things you may be thinking of doing, especially if you are in a profession that writes a lot, is simply using black text on a white background. Hey, you're used to it. You read that exact format every day, as does your audience, and it's simple and nobody can judge you for it, right? Wrong. Black text on a white background is the worst color combination you can choose when creating presentation slides. To understand why, you need to know a little bit of how the eye works and how the presentation display works. Part of the way that the eye works is by taking in light. When you have a huge, bright white screen in front of your audience, especially if you're in a room that has had its lights dimmed to make it easier to see the screen, your rods and cones start getting overwhelmed with that bright light. This causes eye fatigue and is generally unpleasant to the audience. If you do this, the eye starts to lose focus, tire out, and the black text on the screen will become fuzzy and slowly become more and more illegible. This is precisely the opposite effect of what you are trying to accomplish. Instead, take some time to understand color and how the human eye receives color. In order to understand color, you need to understand the color wheel. The color wheel shows analogous and complementary colors by showing a color and its opposite on the other side of the color wheel. These opposite colors work well against each other and can be used to have color help you. Just look at some common color combinations. When your rods and cones see too much of one color, they get fatigued, and the color opposite allows them to rest. But when using them together, you have content that jumps off the screen because it is so crisp to the eye. Think about red and green, traffic lights, Christmas holiday colors, they're opposites. Blue and orange, my New York Knicks, JetBlue Airlines. They use complementary colors that way, but you don't have to be limited to primary colors and their opposites in your presentation. In fact, you may want to have certain colors, and a great way to do that is have someone else pick out your color palette for you. The easiest way I've found is to tap into Canvas.com's palette tool, where you can see dozens of different color combinations and how they go together, and pick one that is already made to look great together. I am not going to go deep into transitions because I really think they aren't necessary for most professional presentations. The software available makes it very easy to build dramatic swoop in or revealing cubes or tornado swirls to change from one slide to another. All this flair takes away from the teaching. I'm a firm believer that your slide should either simply change to the next one or use the push feature to change slides from one to the next. Any other fancy move is really unnecessary and distracting. If you look at the major presentations like any of the Steve Jobs iPhone launches, They don't get all crazy fancy. They make the transition simple and focus on the message. You should too. Now, if you thought choosing the right colors was something you never really thought about, and I get it, you're just now starting to see all the things that go into a great presentation, I want to talk to you about fonts and font selection and size. There are two types of fonts, serif and sans serif. A serif is a slight projection finishing off a letter in typeface. They zhuzh it up a little bit. You know how your eyes just follow words that are written in cursive from one to the next? Well, you can't really do that with printed words, but serifs allow the eye to move smoothly from letter to letter and use the same psychological trick. But at the massive scale for a slide deck, they can make things a little hinky. You see, you build a slide deck on your small screen, but you have to realize that this slide deck will be blown up large when presenting to an audience. And that little accent, well, might be a foot long and no longer a small little accent. For slides, I definitely recommend using a sans serif font because you eliminate the little accent and your slide type will be clean and crisp. If you insist on using a serif font, consider using them as accent fonts for a single word when you have more than one word on a slide. That brings me to my next point, font size. For many people, they try to cram a ton of words onto the page because they are unsure of the way to present the concept and figure that if they throw a lot of words on the screen, this gets the point across. Here's the trouble with that. The audience sees a lot of words and immediately gets to work trying to decode and read them. And that takes the focus away from you and puts it on the screen. The screen is there to help communicate the concepts in the presentation, not be the presentation. Guy Kawasaki, an entrepreneur and public speaker, has a very simple guide for designing slides. He suggests no less than a 30-point font on a page. I suggest that you should try to go even bigger if you can, and limit your slides to 20 words or less. Here's an example why. You probably are reading this slide right now, and I bet if you are reading it in your head a lot faster than I am reading it aloud. And you will be at the end before I am done reading it aloud. Now think of that in the context of your presentation. Why do you want to take the attention away from yourself, the speaker, just to read what is on the slide to the people who undoubtedly can read faster themselves than you can read aloud? You don't. So remove the words from the slide and you won't be tempted to fall into this trap. In fact, one of the hallmarks of an inexperienced speaker who doesn't know their topic well enough is one who turns and reads what is on his slide deck to the audience. They don't need that. They can read. They aren't here to be read to. They are here to learn. And if you want to teach them, teach the concepts that are behind the words. The worst possible takeaway for your audience is that they only learn that you can read from the slides on the screen. If you are reading, you are not teaching. Which brings me to my next point. Everyone here has heard the phrase, a picture is worth 1,000 words. And that is certainly true. So why not utilize images to help tell your story? There are hundreds of stock photography sites out there that can be used. I myself use iStockPhoto.com and Photodune.net, and both provide me with interesting photos that I can purchase and license to drive home concepts. Perhaps you're talking about driving. Instead of the word driving on the screen, how about showing a car on the road? Or maybe you're talking about money. A satchel full of $100 bills conveys that well. Emotion can really be conveyed with photos. When you're talking about an anger, show the photo of an angry person. The reality is that these stock photos can offer you plenty of different options inexpensively, and you can look great. Most photo sites even let you find photos that match your concept by color, so you can find photos that already match your existing color palette. Remember though, clip art is for school children and third grade teachers. Don't use it. Clip art is the ugliest way to use imagery. Instead, try to find full screen photos. Don't pick a photo and drop it on the page. blow it up and fill the page for a statement piece. It will look better, it will make you look better, and the audience will understand the concepts as they see each image. Finally, and this is a pet peeve of mine and a few other accomplished speakers I know, video is a great way to convey emotion or an idea. But for God's sake, if you are speaking to lawyers, please, please don't use clips from My Cousin Vinny. It's tired, it's overdone, it's hacky, and frankly, you will lose the attention of your audience if you place a My Cousin Vinny clip into your presentation, because those clips have been dragged out so many times that all they do is remind your audience of other presentations they have seen. Be unique. Find new clips to use. Now let's discuss the technology you can use to present, because tech is something that frustrates and intimidates some presenters, but it doesn't have to be that way. The easiest microphone for a presenter to use is called a lavalier microphone. This is the type of microphone you see often used in interviews and on the news. It's a clip-on microphone that allows you to walk around and not be tied to a podium. The other great thing about lavaliers is that they allow you to be hands-free, which will be important if you are using a presentation mouse or, if you're like me, someone who uses his hands a lot for emphasis and attention. These handheld microphones are traditionally used by performing artists, but are also less expensive than lavalier microphones, so many venues have them. The biggest issue with handheld microphones is the placement of the microphone. For the most part, people do two things wrong with them. They either place them right up against their mouth, which causes the microphone to amplify really garbled speech, or they hold them too low. To use a handheld best, place it 2 to 4 inches in front of your mouth and keep it in front of your mouth, not down by your chest. This is another reason why a lavalier is preferred for speaking. With a lav, you don't have to worry about placement once it is on your shirt or lapel. Now, if you have a slide deck and don't want to be tied to your laptop, or you just want to make the slide movement seem magical, a presentation mouse is a great tool. These devices have a receiver that plugs into your USB port on your computer, and then you can press buttons to advance and reverse the slides, to shut off the slides when you want attention just on you, and many also come with a laser pointer integrated into the device. They are inexpensive and you can get them easily on Amazon. Just find one you feel comfortable with in your hand and practice a few transitions and you will be a pro in no time. Some conferences will actually assemble your slides onto a single machine and have a presenter mouse that you can use. But I always travel with my own just in case, so I am ready. This next step is what will blow your mind if you haven't already been in on the secret way to make your life as a presenter easier. Embedded in the software for these presentations is a way to leave presenter notes for each slide. Once again, don't try to simply copy the content on your slide word for word, but instead make sure you have bullet points or a list of your talking points per slide in the section for presenter notes. This allows you to be looking at your notes while the audience is looking at your slides, and you could use them to refresh your recollection of your points to make, or keep you on track and keep you from rambling on from one slide and jumbling up your message. Now, if you combine that tool with another tool called a confidence monitor, you will finally learn that all great presentations and presenters know you are not expected to memorize your presentation word for word. A confidence monitor sits at the foot of the stage and projects either your slides on the screen behind you or your presenter notes, or even better, your slides, the next slide, your notes, and the elapsed time of your presentation so you can stay on pace and also know what is coming next. A confidence monitor is your key to a great presentation. In some instances and in small rooms, you could use your own laptop on the podium or on a table in front of you for the same effect and gain confidence as you can see your notes, but nobody else can. If you are speaking, definitely inquire if a confidence monitor will be available. I know some speakers who require it in their speaking agreement. It just helps make the presentation awesome. A final word in this section about embedding. When you build your presentation deck on your own machine, you will have access to any fonts your machine has, as well as sound clips and video clips that reside on your computer. Be sure when you transfer your slides to another machine, like maybe the standard laptop being used by an organization for their seminar, that the fonts, sounds, and videos have transferred over. Don't expect them to come over. This is another good reason to use standardized sans serif fonts in your presentation. If you choose some font that you downloaded yourself, it may not be available on the other computer, and that machine then looks to replace the font, causing your pretty slides to look wonky because the replacement font doesn't match up exactly the same. The same idea goes for sound and video embedding. If you have the audio or video on your machine, it may not be there when you play your slides on another machine. So be sure to run your slides through the machine that you will be used in the presentation to make sure everything that you need is there and that it works before you start your speech. So one of the benefits of being tech forward is that you can use tech to enhance your presentation. While this video isn't going to highlight all the different things that you can possibly do, pay attention to what the market has to offer. You can do real-time polling of your audience and show the poll results so that your audience feels their input mattered to your presentation. You can use a QR code or SMS services to join your marketing list with almost zero friction. These are some of the things that have worked for me, and you are limited only to your creativity. For example, if you're a lawyer and want to join my free Facebook group, you can do so by pointing your camera at this QR code. Now, let's talk about stage presence because not everyone, including me, was born with a desire or a skill in being on stage. This won't be long, I promise, and with a few core concepts, you'll be miles ahead of other speakers who will be presenting. Many new speakers use a podium as a safe zone to give their presentation from. That's okay, and in time you will find you will either develop into someone who walks the stage or someone who stays still. No matter what, find where you are comfortable because that is clearly seen by your audience. Just because you are standing in one place doesn't mean that you should stand there like a robot. You can use your arms for dramatic effect, tilt your head, and another thing, if you do use a podium, be sure to bring some water with you. There's nothing worse than being parched on stage and looking down and seeing used water bottles from prior speakers, but none from yourself. Water everywhere, but not a drop to drink. A podium placement is perfectly fine, and nobody expects you to be running around on stage unless that is who you are, naturally. Now, if you're the type of person who likes to move around, feel comfortable using movement and the whole stage to draw attention to the points you are making. I've seen some great speakers who've gotten down and walked around the audience, engaging with the people and involving them in the presentation. Remember, a lot of presentations at seminars are boring, and you're not. So take this moment to bring some dramatic flair to your presentation. Make your movement purposeful to create drama or tension or make a point. Just don't jump around just to move. I myself, I've done some crazy things like dance on stage, worn costumes, but all because it's part of who I am after 20 plus years of presenting to professional audiences. Develop your style as you speak more and get as creative as you want to be. Some seminars and topics naturally lend themselves to open questions from the audience, and as a speaker, you need to be prepared for questions. First, if a question comes up and you will be covering that later, don't hesitate to inform the audience that you will cover that question later. But one simple tip can make your presentation better when dealing with questions. Repeat the question to everyone, since most of the time, the audience isn't mic'd up and those on the other side of the room weren't able to hear the question. So your answer won't make sense. So in keeping with the mantra of telling them what you've told them, it's always a good idea to reframe the key takeaways as you end your presentation. This way you tap into the recency effect and they walk out remembering the last things you talked about, which also happen to be your takeaways. So for today, we covered 4 areas: content, outline your presentation, and know your material. You can't throw it together at the last minute and expect it to be awesome. Slides. Be aware of color and font choice on your slides. Technology. Get comfortable with microphones and presenter tech so you can use them without fumbling. Stage presence. Be yourself. Don't try to imitate other speakers. You are worthy of this. And don't read your slides. Ever. Please, please, don't just read your slides. Now, I always like to throw up some contact information at the end of my presentation and encourage my audience to use it to connect with me either on social media or by text message or email. These people look to you as an industry leader and can send you business or make connections for you to people who you may want to meet yourself. Presentations are a great way to build up your brand name and demonstrate your skills and knowledge. And once they know you are knowledgeable, they should want to keep in touch with you. I hope I haven't overwhelmed you with this information. I know it's a lot to take in, but I believe in you and that your topic is important and people need to hear it from you. So I want you to be the best presenter that you can be. If you are ever stumped or need help with the presentation, or maybe you want to get input on a slide deck or need a friend to help you test out your presentation, if I can help you, I will. Don't hesitate to reach out. I'm Jay Ruane. Thanks for watching. Now go out and give a kick-ass presentation.